I should
I'm
always
just
make
red
sure.
button over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
And it should,
I mean, it looks
yep.
like we're running. Gosh,
Yay.
dude.
I don't even know what episode this is.
Yeah, I don't know.
12?
12, maybe. Let's call it 12.
With about a month break.
It might be 13, 12 or 13. Let's see.
Somewhere between
We
8
have
and 20.
this is 13.
Wow.
Lucky number 13.
Sweet.
Okay, so we are going to talk a little bit about forgiveness today, and we've already determined officially that's complicated.
I'll start. Well, I got COVID. I traveled to Europe and got COVID after 2.5 years of being really, 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 really responsible about mask wearing and personal, what do they call it, social distancing. And this trip, we just sort of said, you know what, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And most people don't, right? I mean, we're sort of in a period where nobody wore. A couple people wore masks on the plane. Some people had masks in the airport. Nobody had masks anywhere we went, and we got it. And there's a little bit of shame associated with it, you know. Like, I got COVID. I feel like I did something wrong, and so it transitions into this episode. I have to forgive myself in order to not feel that shame, right? I have to convince myself that it's okay, you know, that I didn't do anything wrong. And maybe that's not exactly what we're going to talk about with what forgiveness is, but in a way, I think it is.
Yeah, well, I think it's super important. Okay, so because when an issue, so there's 3 ways to think about forgiveness, at least 3 ways.
Awesome.
But this might cover all 3, or all ways. Is 1 is you need to forgive yourself. 2, you may be seeking forgiveness from another.
Oh.
And then 3 would be that you are seeking
To forgive someone.
Yeah, to forgive someone, right? Yeah. Well, yeah. You want forgiving another one, right? So you need to forgive them, or they need to forgive you, or you need to forgive yourself. So the forgiving yourself one is going to appear for you as doubt, regret,
Shame.
guilt, or shame. Right? Yeah. So shame. So that's where that fits in perfect. You know, for you. But I'm not sure why do you think you should feel?
I know, it's weird. I mean, I just feel like, I mean, part of it's political. Like, I wanted to be one of these sort of extremists that was like, I'm doing my part, damn it. I'm going to do everything in my power to not be the people who are out partying and spitting on each other and making out in public during, you know, the height of the pandemic. Like, I'm not going to be that. And so, I don't know. I found a weird sense of, I attached myself to a weird sense of pride in not getting it. And I think that people do that anyway, right? People think I'm healthy, therefore I'm good. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't get sick. I have an iron constitution, you know, whatever. I live a better life than you. You know, there is a little bit of judgment for just getting sick in general, not specifically with COVID. And so the flip side of that is, yeah, I think when you sort of fail and end up getting sick, it is an indication that you're less healthy, or you messed up, or you reduced your constitution to a point where, you know, you allowed the infection to invade your body, you know. And my contractor's like that. I mean, almost daily he talks about how healthy he is, and it's important to him. He's attached to this thing, and I think he had COVID, but his denial of it and his strength and his healthiness sort of enabled him to just pretend his way through it.
Yeah. Well, and then the interesting thing about that, though, too, would be, right, is somebody could be the carrier of it. So it's like you have it, but you don't have symptoms.
Yeah,
so
right.
You still
right.
technically have it, right?
I guess.
Like,
but Kathleen, now you got to talk to my wife about this, because there's a contagiousness factor. So you can have it and not be contagious. Like, you have to have the symptoms. And I'm talking way out of my rear end here.
Yeah.
Make it more contagious. So I would guess that if you don't have any symptoms, your contagiousness is pretty minimal.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can still get people sick. And this is, I'm talking really about these strains now, not so much, because they're so different than the first ones.
Yeah. It seems to be, not to make light of it, but it seems that it is a lot more like what we used to just call a cold, a head cold or something like that. So and you don't feel well, clearly.
Yeah.
But it's not going as bad as quickly or as maybe as commonly.
Yeah,
right,
it's not overwhelming hospitals.
Ye-
It's
right.
like colds. I always say, like one of my kids going to daycare or school, and they're snotty and coughing. I'm like, can I really send this kid to school?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, come on, it's just a cold. We accept that in our culture,
Right.
and hopefully COVID, maybe will go a direction where it just becomes like that. I mean, even the flu, we don't, stay home. We recommend you stay home.
Right.
But not everybody does.
Right. Well, and so, we've probably gone off the track for forgiveness here immediately.
Getting to forgiveness.
But that's just so important because I think of the lessons that we hopefully maybe have learned from COVID is that our health is important and other people's health is important. So we should be able to stay home and not feel obligated to go to work.
Yeah, right. Right.
And it should be okay to get yourself well, and also that is going to take care of other people by you staying home. And so I've seen that in my gym very specifically. Most everybody that has encountered it, whether they were around somebody or they specifically tested positive with COVID, regardless of their symptoms, right? Were immediately kind of self-quarantined or stayed home, and definitely did mask the 5 days after or whatever the kind of the protocol, which if you follow them, it's just the best you can do. Like that's what you're doing. You're doing
Totally.
the best you can do. Does it work exactly? Who knows? But then there was one particular day somebody came in and they were like a NyQuil commercial walking in the door. And I was like, no. Like you definitely need to stay home today no matter what,
Right.
whether it's COVID
Right,
or
whatever you got. we don't
yeah,
want
it doesn't matter. And I don't even think that particular person ended up having COVID, but it was like, man, you are visibly carrying literally a snotty rag in your hand.
Well, yeah, and you wonder if people just don't know,
Yeah.
or they don't care.
Well, I
or
think though, but
how
we're
is it?
so accustomed the shoulds, you should just go
Yeah,
to work
right, tough it
anyways
out.
and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And of course, there's a degree of that is true.
But see, I've never been like that though. I mean, I get it that culturally there's a thing out there of, like my contractor, healthiness is toughness and being sick is a weakness. I get that that's the thing, but I've never really. I mean, I feel it, but if I'm sick, I want to stay home.
Yeah,
if I
well,
don't feel good.
so
I don't want to go to work.
That's another should thing there is that because that's true all the times that it's true and not true all the times it's not true, right? You know what I mean? It's right, so yeah, I mean being a sign of weakness or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean I'm pretty fortunate. I don't get sick very often. I don't know if any of this is wood.
Probably
Knock on
not.
wood.
This is-
There you go. Knock on that. That's knock on wood. Okay, so I don't get sick very often. But so when I do, of course, the gym has made me very aware because I'm, very interactive with people there. Now, at the same time, I'm fortunate to have a lot of space. I can kind of stay away from people on purpose there, but nonetheless, especially if I would be sneezing or coughing or something like that. But so when I've been sick throughout the years, which again, very fortunate, does not happen that much, is that I've tried to stay home. I'm sick, I'm not coming because I'm not getting my whole gym sick.
Right.
over.
I'm sorry
And-
I'm canceling your classes or whatever.
Yeah, and and of course, usually somebody can step up or cover or whatever, right? So, and maybe they can't do it every day because of their job too, but they can cover, people can step up for a while. And of course, that's, I think, the thing, though, that has become unfortunate, is become a should of you should power through it and you should just go and blah, blah, blah. It's well, that's why we're sick. Or that's why we spread sickness.
Yeah, that's a funny. Well, and so in a forgiveness sort of standpoint, it's we constantly have to forgive other people for their inability to sort of see things, our way or the right way. I don't know. For people who do get macho about being sick and want to be in public when they have symptoms, that's offensive on some level, right? And does it require a level of forgiveness?
Yeah.
Where's that line?
Okay, yeah, so that's a perfect lead for forgiveness there, because the thing is that you don't know exactly what they're dealing with, right? So because it's complicated. what you're going to do then, you have a perception, this person's coming in, I think they're sick, I believe they shouldn't be here for whatever reason, and I've already made judgments then on that they shouldn't. And you probably are right that ideally they would be staying home for the sake of everybody, right? But so their situation may be something like, well, they work 2 jobs just to make their rent and grocery bill or whatever, and it's an hourly thing. So, and they don't get any sick leave.
And they have like a mental, if they don't exercise, they get depressed kind of thing, and so it's really, important for them to.
Yeah, like kind of the spiral down. So it's like, so that is why though so you would stop that with judgment, right? So, and when you stop judging, then there's no need to forgive, because you haven't put them in a category that they need
that's interesting,
forgiveness from you. If you haven't decided that what they've done, now this is not going to be
there's some offenses
every situation
that aren't judgment, like you killed him, I'm not judging, like I'm not making up that that's wrong.
This thing happened. Yes,
so the first step is that you assess.
So that's going to eliminate a lot of need for forgiveness right away, is if you can get yourself to
that's pretty strong.
Eliminating judgment. So you have your perception, and your perception is always going to be an illusion.
Right.
So like in my book terms, that's where I say, okay, delusion of separateness, right? And so that because of you're separate and you only can completely know your aspect, which, let's face it, you're not even going to literally remember everything in your life either. But okay,
even that's pretty weak.
But that's weak at best. But so it's your perception of the situation, and your perception is flawed for multiple reasons. If for no other reason, though, it's because you cannot know every single factor. If you knew every single factor, you would be God, the whole, the all, everything.
And I would even add that the degree to which we are wrong about those things is bigger than we think on top of it. So we're wrong, and it's not like we're 1% wrong or 5% wrong. We're probably more like 45% wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right. Again, because, and for no other reason, because we just don't know.
Why would we even begin to think? I mean, that's an evolutionary thing, right? We got to fill in these blanks so that we can make a decision. But in these cases, it's not life or death, but we do it anyway.
Right, yeah. So if you can get past that initial judgment, because you understand that your perception is flawed, and that's not to say that you don't make decisions. It's not to say that you don't care. You still can care, and you still make decisions of what to do on a moment-to-moment basis.
Right.
But you again orient yourself towards the truth. So, and that's the best you can do. And that's what. So we got some new decor in the building besides our brandy. What are these? Saint Bernard, right?
Yep.
Our brandy Saint Bernard.
He's really got IPA in there.
He's got Chris put an IPA in there. We have Don Miguel's 4 Agreements, and so the other one we have is the Feelings Wheel, which is very nice. And
so for reference.
So just for a little reference for us too, and of course one of the things on the 4 Agreements from Don Miguel Ruiz is do your best. Well, or always do your best. Well, your best is going to change from time to time.
Yeah, right.
And you don't know.
And like you're saying, you don't stop living because you know you can't get it right.
Right.
You still follow the path to the truth, knowing that you're going to be wrong about things, and especially when you're making judgments.
Yeah, and so I don't know if this goes into forgiveness. Maybe it's like forgiving the whole world part, but that what you just said there about life going on, I've been thinking about this like a decent amount because of like we get situations happen in the world. For example, recently, a major thing in the U.S., of course, is the Roe versus Wade case. And so a lot of people have very, very strong opinions on it. Okay, now, regardless of what those opinions are,
there's the wrong ones and the right ones.
Right. Regardless of what those opinions are, exactly, that no matter what, you need to go on with your life on a daily level. And just because that happened, it doesn't mean that you can never laugh again or smile again or enjoy yourself again. And you certainly still need to hold up your end of the world, like your responsibility, you know? And the thing is, so there again, with the idea of forgiveness, it's like that is all created where it's like people think they believe they're right of whatever opinion they have, whichever side that's on. They believe they're right, and then somehow they need to, I mean, they're judging the other side. And again, it comes to like the attack of it. So it's like when you're on one side and you're attacking somebody with your words, with your opinion, with your attack on them, like these, if you're calling them a name or whatever, it's like you're not helping at that point, And so again, this is, I mean, maybe it's so complicated, but it's like you have to, if the judgment was stopped to begin with, then you don't need to attack anybody. You don't need to forgive anybody. It doesn't mean that you still don't fight for what you believe is right.
Exactly.
But somehow you have to realize that you need to do it in a way that does not directly attack the other person, because that is not working. And we do this over and over and over and over again. And again, why does nothing change?
No, a billion percent. And I know we're talking about forgiveness, but that brings me to mind of like the omniscient narrator. I remember learning about this in 10th grade English, where a book is written from a perspective of somebody that's not really involved in the story, but they know everything. They know what this guy's thinking, they know what that guy's thinking. Two kids on the playground, a bully and somebody getting picked on. The omniscient narrator knows what's going on and has all the information. Right. Like you say, and that stuck with me, and I've sort of lived my life always knowing that, okay, well, I feel this way, but plenty of people. In fact, this is how I dealt with the Trump when I said, well, 51% of America thinks this way.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't matter how I think because I'm in the minority. And so that brought peace, and I might not, but there's a downside to that because with what you just said. That often creates a space where it's like, well, I'm not going to fight for my position, because what I always say is you can't make someone not believe in God.
Right.
So if we're having a conversation where this person's like, you can't kill a baby because God said you can't kill a baby, well, there's an impasse. Like I'm paralyzed, right? It's like, well, I always will say it. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what you just said is sort of, it's important to get your needs met or get your message across, or and maybe that's part of the problem of why nothing's changing, is because people like me are just, being paralyzed.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that's always an interesting aspect of any kind of problem in the world, whether you're thinking about a war in another country or, maybe, a natural disaster or something. Sometimes, and there's so many problems. There's so many problems in the world, right? That it is completely overwhelming, and it does paralyze you, right? Because it's like you're just overwhelmed. So it's like you do nothing. But first of all, if the opportunity in your life presents you that you can actually literally go do something, I can go volunteer at a homeless shelter, an earthquake, a flood area, right? If I can do that, like after 9/11, people went and volunteered, right? If your life sets you up that you can do that, certainly you can do that. Beyond that, you still, if nothing else, you need to take care of your corner of the world, because that's all that you can take care of, right? If you can't take care of anything else, right? And so you still have the opportunity to change yourself, because that's all you can change. Mm-hmm. And then once again, it's so important to stop the attack of the other side, right? Because that is not helping. And no matter how many times, written history is 10,000 years old, right? Yeah. Let's just say it's 5.
Yeah, I always go with 10 to 12. 10 to 12. Agriculture sort of started at
10 to 12. 10 to 12,000 years of written history, and pretty much it's the same things have happened over and over.
This was my whole experience in Europe. We learned all about this European history.
Okay.
And I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me, because a lot of it I didn't know, and our guides were very honest, and I just felt myself, this is exactly You could have lifted this story out and put it into the news this week, and it's
Yep.
the same
Yes.
exact
Right.
story.
Right.
So yeah,
Yep.
history repeats itself.
Yeah.
Again and again.
Right, right. Okay. And so what then needs to change, right, is, well, you need to flip your thinking completely. Okay. So
Your book.
from the forgiveness,
Yeah.
standpoint, you can forgive yourself, you can seek forgiveness of another, you can forgive another.
You can
All
not
of
judge preceding all that, right? You can
Right.
suspend
And
judgment.
all of that, if you can suspend judgment, it takes it away. So one way to look at forgiveness, and this can be hard to wrap your mind around, but is forgiveness is the one illusion that is necessary.
Oh, dude.
Okay. So
I hope the listeners can get that the way I just got it, because go.
So the thing is everything just is as it is. Okay? Everything that has happened as it happened, regardless of our perception. Our perception is always skewed. So those are things, okay, what happened. Our perception of what happened is skewed, no matter what. Okay?
There's many sides to the story.
Yes, it's
no
only
real
our
truth.
perception, right? Okay. So the idea then that somebody did us wrong, or even that I did myself wrong, or I did another person wrong, the three ways it can
Nice,
be
yeah.
for you, right? That's
Yeah.
going to be, it's a false perception, right? I mean, like what happened. And so, again, the other thing we can look at there is that every act is the act of love or a call for love. Okay.
There you go.
So once you understand that, then you can understand that whatever this person did to them is to you is really because of their pain, their suffering.
Don't take anything
their whatever.
personally.
And see, that's, I think a lot of people misinterpret that one. Like they don't take everything personally.
Oh, right,
And
like
they'll
an
say,
insult or
but it
something.
is personal
Yeah,
because it
yeah.
happened to me. Yes, but what it's not
It's
taken
not
personally.
about
It's
you.
not about
It's
you.
like
it was
shame.
actually about
it's,
them.
It's it's something that happened, but it's not because of who you are.
Right. And of course, one of the things I think that's really hard, and so I can't speak directly of this because I don't feel that anything in my life, like I was affected in any way this, but so a child that then believes that the abuse to them, the verbal abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, right? Whatever abuse, any kind of abuse to them was their fault.
Right.
And it wasn't.
And they always do. I
Yes.
mean, that's the...
Right. And so even a lot of kids, right, in divorce worry that it's their fault, right? You know what I mean? And again, it's not. And so that's what that means. Don't take it personally. There is it's the other person's, it's what is they're dealing with, what they're trying to cope with, and that whatever they're not understanding, dealing with whatever their unhealthy thing, which of course, and that's what we always talk about then, breaking the cycles, right? Be the person that breaks the cycle of the family, that's not, continuing on with abuse just because their mother or father or grandmother, parent, aunt, uncle, whoever it was,
inherited trauma. Don't get me started.
Yeah, don't pass it on. Then don't continue to pass it on. So I think it's so. I mean, so it all goes back to if you can let go of your judgments, and your judgments are going to have to do with your attachment to things, your assumptions, your expectations of what might happen. You got to let go of all of that, and it doesn't mean that you do nothing. It doesn't mean that you become aloof and don't care. It just means that you do the best you can, given your situation,
which changes,
knowledge, which changes over time. And then, so one of the ways then, like when you forgive yourself is, or what all goes with that is letting go of the past, right? Because it's like, you can think back to something and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, and dude, don't let me fool you into thinking that I don't do that. I can't even remember what popped in my head today.
It's important to
that I did
say that.
But it was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that.
Oh, I've got a
like,
list.
Yeah.
I mean, I go to my list sometimes, and I'm like, but now I've learned to kind of go through the list and go, okay, but I did those things, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Right. Yeah.
But there's a ton.
Well, and
in there,
if there is something you've done. So this was like a minor example, okay? But when I was in college, we had an intramural softball team, and two of the guys didn't show up for a game, and this was really kind of competitive, and we were actually really good. Okay.
Yeah.
And you wanted to win.
Right, and it messed up the whole
But if you were going
series or
to forfeit
yeah.
the game, then you would lose. And really, one loss is you're out. Like, it was that competitive of a kind of thing because you're not playing that many games and kind of thing. So I was the whatever captain or whatever they even called us, right? The head of that. Like, I got to.
You did all the work.
Yeah. And so I had a team meeting without those two players. And I asked everybody, what do you guys want me to do? Like, those were two players that normally started for us, but like you could have cost us the year.
Right.
Like, we pulled it off. I think what actually literally ended up happening was the other team had to forfeit.
So it made it moot.
Yeah. And so, I'm not real sure how that all like worked out. Like, they
But
didn't
still,
show.
yeah.
But yeah, so that worked out, so we didn't lose. But so I had that meeting without them. So, of course, both of those guys ended up being really mad at me because we had a team meeting without them. Fair enough. That they're probably right, So maybe I didn't handle it. I was also like 21, But the thing is I thought about that a lot in my life. And finally, this is still a long time ago now, but I'm 50, but somewhere in between 21 and 40 probably, I messaged the guy or emailed him and said, hey man, we were good friends and I feel like that strained our relationship and it bothers me. And I'm sure you have bigger fish to fry at this time in your life now. What I mean? But I want you to know that I've always regretted that my actions strained our relationship.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that's super minor. In the grand scheme of the things you can do to somebody else.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
Right.
But nonetheless, it still strained our relationship. And we were never as close.
Yeah. Right.
Afterwards, of course. And then we both went on to graduate and left and didn't keep in touch. Whereas maybe if that didn't happen, maybe we would have kept in touch.
Or maybe
more.
not.
Yeah, or maybe not. Right. Whatever. But that was something. That was all I could do. I could reach out to him and go, hey, I did this. I didn't, in retrospect, I probably didn't make the best decision, but it was a decision I made at the time, and I'm sorry that for the way you interpreted all that, really. I didn't say it in those terms. But, that's the thing is like holding on to or letting go of the past, or however you want to think of it. You need to let go of it. You can't hold on to it. You can't beat yourself up. You can't punish yourself. And maybe it's even a matter of just saying the thing out loud that I did this.
Right.
And I'm not proud that I did. That's fair because in a way, saying it out loud, it's like we've talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Marriage, I don't think you need to be married in order to necessarily have a healthy relationship. Sure. But from the ceremony standpoint, if that ceremony you are doing the ceremony because you are saying it out loud to other people that I am doing this thing, right? I'm going to live my life differently, right? I'm married with this person now, and we're committing to each other, and we're doing it in public. And
I'm telling you. Yeah. I'm involving you.
Yeah, and so there's value in that. At the same time, if you don't do that, that's fine.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about sort of what you were doing with your teammate was you're forgiving yourself, but you're also in a way asking him for forgiveness.
Yeah,
right.
True.
At the same time, you could have not done that.
Yeah,
and it would have been.
And he could have just he could have not responded. That would have been the response. Not responding would have been the response. He's still mad, or And I don't know. I don't remember if he actually said hey, you don't need to say you're sorry, or it's fine, whatever. Yeah. But he did respond, and we buried that, and it's probably the last time we've even communicated still.
Yeah, right.
Because
sure.
but of course, by that time we had grown light years apart.
But what you said, there's some thing you have to actually do to make it official.
Yeah.
Right? To forgiveness, whether that's saying it in your head or saying it out loud or actually dealing with the other party that was involved. That is supposed to make it real. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. Whether forgiveness stick, because I know I went through this with my divorce. I wanted to forgive so bad, and I tried multiple times, but I never really did.
Yeah.
I still harbored judgments, and it's probably to this day still have some. If you had to sit down and ask me if cheating or adultery is right or wrong, I'm going to argue that it's not right.
Yeah.
But the fact that it happens doesn't mean somebody
okay.
should.
So it's not right in the sense, on the literal terms of is it right or wrong, there's not a literal right or wrong.
Right. Well, it's a breaking of an agreement.
It's not.
And that's
Yes.
not right
yes.
without saying.
And there's an agreement. And so, if in your understanding
The fifth
of the marriage,
Yeah.
right, is that we are committed to each other,
and we're not going to do this.
right, and we don't do this. Now, if in the understanding of the marriage, the people that have an open marriage that or can do
Yeah,
it,
right.
whatever that means, if that is okay with you, and that is the agreement and the understood agreement.
I mean, that's.
Then, so that's where the situation, though, it's not the thing itself is right or wrong. It's when there's the agreement.
Right. Well,
that
and I
we
don't
have
think
the agreement.
the
to this.
adultery isn't
Yeah.
the sex outside of it. It's the breaking of the
Yes.
trust and all that stuff. Because that's what a relationship is built on. And,
Okay, now so here's the thing, because that's a tough one.
I mean, it's a pretty common one. So.
It's very common, right? And of course, like our marriage statistic numbers are,
Yeah,
you know, whatever 50%.
I tried to do that. You can't
Yeah.
actually do that.
Or-
You can't actually estimate the number of
yeah,
divorces
so-
because
but-
of the time frame and
Yeah, like
all you can do is go this
Well-
many people got married this year and this many people got divorced. Well, that doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. Well, and then like here's the other thing, and we've talked a little bit about this. Not to go too far down this road, but just because the marriage came to an end doesn't mean that it's like wrong or bad or whatever.
Totally.
It might be the best
Well,
thing.
and this is
and
all. Yeah.
again, we're like it's kind of the collateral beauty. Like
Yeah, it's part
your
of it.
life is a brand new thing now because of it.
And I can't imagine
Yeah.
what it would be like. And I see people
Yeah.
that are kind of like in the marriage I would have been in had I stayed. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
Sure.
and none of those look
Right, yeah.
appealing.
You know-
and who knows? Like you said, everybody's different.
And that's tough to do. So I think though, okay, some of the things that like really need to happen along the line is one is that if in the relationship that if somebody has asked you for forgiveness and you've said yes, I forgive you, well that means it's full right then. It's full forgiveness right then, and it's immediate. It's not like, well, let me chew on it and think about it. You know what I mean? It's like when you say
but does
you're
saying
forgiven.
the words really make the change?
No.
That's my question.
Yeah, they don't. Well, but, okay, and that's because only over time can we demonstrate that our behavior is truly different.
Oh,
Only over
right. So
time.
you're like comparing your future behavior to like past behavior
And
to
and
see.
so and really, dude. So think about it. Like so, couple way, you know, one cheats. The partner forgives. 10 years, nothing. It's all good.
Oh yeah,
everything's
right,
good.
Right.
10 years later, the same partner cheats again. Now, I mean,
Well, I mean, I'm sure that's happened.
Yeah.
And people
Oh,
stay
of
married.
course.
I mean, well, my mom,
Yeah.
my parents.
Yeah.
My dad was a serial adulterer, and they're still married.
Okay. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's just an interesting aspect. That only the time can prove that. So that's why if you say, though, that I accept your... So first of all, like, that it doesn't matter whether you do or not.
Yeah.
Given what I just said about that forgiveness is like the one illusion that works, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, because you don't have to, because everything is just what it is anyways.
Yeah.
Okay. But forgiveness is the pathway to truth. Like, so you're in an illusion because of your perception. Forgiveness of the other, the seeming need to forgive another, to get forgiveness, whatever, is the pathway to truth, because truth is the solution to any illusion. Like, this is an illusion. This means it's not.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not
The
true,
only way
it's
to
false,
dispel it is by replacing
is by
it
truth.
with
So, but
truth.
forgiveness is the truth,
Or a
the
more
pathway to it.
It could be
right?
a more accurate
Yeah.
description of the truth. It might not be the truth, but it could just be a more accurate interpretation.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think that's again, it's the pathway to it,
yeah.
because it's always just beyond our grasp, anyways.
Right,
as
right,
a
right,
human,
right. But we
right?
can-
Yeah, you know, as a human. But so there's a really good. I think we talked about this before. There's a really good episode of, or it might be in a movie. I think it's in the movie of Sex and the City, where the one girl is saying like, I think her husband's Steve. Yeah, Steve is all about the
yeah, I
I'm
remember.
sorry. I'm
Steve.
sorry emails. I'm sorry flowers. I'm sorry cars. And she says, how about don't do anything to be I'm sorry for, right? And that to me though that's what I really. That's like my book of integrity, right? That's
I
the
agree.
idea.
I think
right?
that's the truth I strive for. Right.
Yeah.
I may fail. I may not make it, but that's the target that I'm aiming for. Is just to try to
Right. Yeah. Because not everything's going to be ideal, anyways. Because it's like, so you could do something not meaning
Oh yeah.
to put the person
or having never
yeah.
considered it, like,
Right.
and be like, oh, now I see where. Oh, geez.
Right. Yep. So it's almost impossible to actually
Yeah.
operate.
And that is
way.
okay. I mean,
Yes.
that's like way early
Yes.
on as saying I'm human.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well,
And-
well, go ahead.
Well, and so, I mean, dude, that's what I've talked about here before. It's like that if you could knowingly choose that which is wise or that which is known to be unwise, like this is wise, this is unwise, in every
Why
situation,
would you- right.
like if you could just absolutely know for sure, right, you would never choose the unwise.
But the world is full of people that do that every day. I see them do it. I watch them.
They choose the unwise. Thing.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
So, okay,
there
so
must be some
where's-
personal power or some like,
So-
minimal threshold of doing
What-
anything like what we're talking about.
Yeah, okay, so somewhere along then, so somebody that does that, they choose the unwise. But so somehow, this would be
That's
related
it's
to
a
the...
call for love.
It's a call for love, for one. That's absolutely right. Yep, it's a call for love. They choose the unwise. And so, and somehow, even, they also have justified that behavior to be right. And, I mean, so it's like the... Okay, so... stealing, I know people, a person, I probably know more than one person, but I know a person for sure that purposely steals from Walmart through the self-checkouts.
Mhm. Oh yeah, the case of beer thing. Have you heard this?
Oh, no.
If you
We're going to teach everybody.
if you scan a can of beer, for a lot of beers in a lot of stores, it scans as a 6-pack because most of the 6-packs are loose.
Okay.
So if you open up a case of beer to expose a can, you can scan it as a 6-pack.
Oh, you can scan
I know
it.
people that do that.
Okay, right. So knowingly doing that, right, those things. And you've justified that in your mind. However...
Right. I
'cause it-
deserve it. The man's got me down.
Right,
and,
yeah. Walmart's making plenty of
Right,
money.
they're a big
screw-
corporation.
Yeah, right, And, I mean, and that's...
Yeah.
They're not necessarily wrong, but like I'm not
It's civil
sure
disobedience.
Yeah, right. Because they've justified it that way, right? So that's like an interesting aspect that like so between the wise and unwise, and so my way to think about that there though is no matter what is, well, just reverse the roles. Like, would you want?
Yeah, exactly.
And would
you
you
know
want
it's
to be
wrong.
stolen from?
If
Yes.
you
Yeah.
didn't think it was wrong, you would just go up there and do it in broad daylight.
Yeah.
Instead of like being sneaky.
Right, yeah, right. Instead of
About
being
it.
sneaky about it, and then at the same time too, because I could hear which I could hear somebody like myself argue like, well, what about stealing because you're trying
poor.
to get you're poor and you're trying to get the medicine for your wife that she needs to survive, so you stole it. Although I don't even know how you would do that really now, but I mean like if that was that simple.
You
to
got to
do.
be way more conniving and sneaky.
If you could stealing in the name of survival. Well, that's like a breakdown of all society. It's like, well, you shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? That's
right,
the
right.
that's the bigger societal problem.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can see I the social justice issues, I have a lot of sympathy for. And it's tough to sort of say, well, I get where you're coming from because you're oppressed. But, how much of that can we tolerate and how can we actually change those things? How can we change the symptoms that are wrong so that people don't need to do that? Because I believe people are good. And if you could make the system perfect and utopian, then people wouldn't do those things because they wouldn't have reason to do those things. But
Right.
plenty of people out there think that people are inherently evil, and even in a utopian society, they'll be like, I could kill that guy.
Right. Well, okay. So, dude, talking about that one. So, I've heard people say that we should, no government, just anarchy. Okay.
That ain't gonna work.
Well, the thing about anarchy that works
Yeah, right.
has rules. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
there's like,
Right.
they might be unwritten in
right,
theory,
right.
But
Or
there
you
would
can't
be-
do that.
Yeah, right. There would be rules because if it's anarchy, like we're all just killing everybody, well, then everybody's dead, right? Like an eye for an eye.
Yeah, that's
And
one
see,
thing I like.
yeah, and I mean, so that's one that like kind of talking about like forgiveness and making things right or whatever. The whole eye for an eye thing. is misunderstood. More, it should have. It's better understood as it's only the punishment only is as deep as
Yeah, it's just
what happened.
It's just justice.
Yeah,
if you
right.
ask me.
It's
I mean,
justice. Yeah, it's not.
that's however you.
It's not revenge.
Right.
Justice and revenge are two different things, and that goes back to the attacking the other, and that's the cycle. Then, because when we attack and when we need revenge because, my family like violence, because violence is never the answer. Violence is never. We've talked about this.
Mm-hmm. I believe that too.
Violence is never the answer. Because then there's going to be retribution.
Yeah. Well, and it's like
revenge.
You've got to learn. And this was so my battle with forgiveness was to sort of, it wasn't about finding, how do I say this? So it wasn't about figuring out what forgiveness was. It was about dealing with all of the things you're talking about that I was adding on top of the forgiveness. Or, that was like covering onto the offense and sort of making the forgiveness into something bigger. She's a narcissist, she's a whore, all these things that, like you're saying, justify that it wasn't my fault, but it built on top of it. And until I peeled away those layers of, this is and maybe these are all stories. I mean, maybe it's, again, forgiveness is an illusion. So I had to come up with these stories. And when you said that, it made me think, fake it till you make it. Maybe this is and I hate that phrase.
Yeah.
But maybe in this case, it applies because faking it, just like digging into the illusion allowed me to sort of process those layers in order to sort of get down and say that, this isn't. And then, of course, there's the layers where it's about me. It's something I did. I had to process that and figure out a way to convince myself that I no longer had to do that. I didn't have to have the shame. I had to work through all that. That's one layer. Then I had to work through the blame, being a victim. I got to be in the pity seat. Man, being in the pity seat is powerful.
Sure.
Being the victim is a powerful spot. That's why so many people stay there. It's like, I am wholly entitled. And you can look out into the world and find millions of people who will be like, yeah, man, I'm going to support your victimhood and help you stay. That's a lot of people get stuck there. Yep. So that's a big layer to peel back. And then once you kind of get all that stuff done, then you're sort of like, all right, I'm going to think about this thing. How do I want that? What do I want that story? It's an illusion. I get to rewrite the story. So I'm going to write a story that says, I'm a survivor. I dealt with this. It's something that happened. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where you arrive. And like you said, I mean, I don't know that there's another way to. It sucks though, because when you're at the beginning of that process, people are just like, get over it.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
that's impossible.
Yeah. Right.
Don't you understand? How could you possibly say something like that?
Right.
But nobody really teaches you. All they say is, what I was told is, you have to learn to forgive, and it's going to take time.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the best we can do for people, is just sort of. And when other people in my life ran into similar situations, they would come to me for help, and I'd just be like, I can't. This is not something I can help you with. And I didn't really understand it, but now that I've said this to you out loud, maybe that's why, because it's a journey you have to take on your own, and you have to figure out all the steps, because otherwise the way you peel those layers off is just more illusion.
Yeah, right.
And it's not going to be real. And you're not going to arrive at a spot where you're okay.
Right.
And that's the goal, right? I don't know that you can write a prescription for that and just say, do this and you'll be fine.
Yeah. It's definitely, telling people just to get over it, I think is tough. And again, I think if there's so many of the shoulds that start these problems, like the way to be.
Like, I should be over it.
Yeah.
Somebody says get over it. Well, I should just get over it.
Yeah, right.
Why can't I get over it?
Well, and just like the whole way that we exist, period, and we're so caught in our constant judgment, our constant perception, and oblivious to the fact that we are judging everything on this constant moment-to-moment basis. I like this, I dislike that. That's right, that's wrong. It should be this way, it shouldn't be that way, right? And everything is always
terrible.
And And dude, like again, this is what we're talking about. Like everyone thinks they're right. Like, what do you think in your life that you're not like right about? Like whatever,
Yeah.
however you want to paint that, whether you justify
That's
it,
so true.
right? Because you justify like your actions, and we talked about this like before, like smoking, right? So people like justify smoking. You know, it's like, well, it curbs my appetite. It it helps me with stress, whatever. That and. And who was healthy, who lived forever with and smoked till
George
they were
Burns.
95. Yeah, they were whatever the case may be. So you justify like your actions, but you shouldn't have to justify your actions because if we were just honest all the time, pointing towards the truth without judging everything, and it's highly difficult. It's highly difficult.
But I'm seeing all these like high level indicators of just things that I've sort of been processing lately, like trying to live in a state of being more than a state of doing, accepting that life is suffering, but being okay with that. You know what I mean? Like all these are sort of like high level choices that we make. And so if you become aware of a judgment, it's almost like a red flag that you're, in a dishonest place.
I
like
think
you're telling a story.
Yeah, and it's important just to clarify on like the idea that life is suffering. So that's a major Buddhist.
Don't make assumptions.
Don't make assumptions, right? Yeah. Well, so that's assumptions, expectations, attachments. Those are all together.
And
desires.
And just to say this out loud, all of a sudden this whole Buddhist tenet of the self is an illusion, which I just despise. I get it now. Like it's a story. It's a judgment that we make that is inaccurate. And that's it doesn't mean it's way completely stupidly wrong. It's not.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. Well, because we're always trying to because we're limited by words. This is really interesting. Dude, I'm sitting there watching my dog last night. And of course, what in my head I'm thinking like what's my dog thinking right now?
Right.
Maybe they are thinking in English. Highly unlikely.
But they might understand 9 to 12 English words.
And maybe they do. But so you'll see it everywhere, like the quiet mind, the peace of mind and all that. And that is presumably then what an animal does. And that does not mean that your dog is not going to do something that you might not be happy with, and it's not necessarily, that it's
right. They're not always going to.
Yeah. It's going to eat something that you don't want it to eat, or like they might fight with it but the dog is not out there making decisions, like humans are.
Yeah.
On that.
Which is constantly what I would lump into a doing.
Yes.
Category.
Yeah.
It's being.
Yes.
I mean, it's obviously doing things, but what I mean by those words, there isn't a pre. There isn't like, I look at the speakers. Okay, let me think about all the different things I could do. Okay, now I will do something.
Right,
that's doing. Whereas it would be like, they're in the way, I'll just move along.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's not a good.
Yeah. So I mean, I think just maybe try to put a bow on this one like a little bit. Like the biggest thing is that your perception is always skewed. You cannot have perfect omniscience, right? You said the omniscient
you can't
narrator.
Be there.
You cannot be the omniscient narrator. That's the one big hole. If you view that as a white dude with a beard and that's your perception of it, that's not necessarily wrong because it's everything. Mm-hmm.
And nobody can refute or
you can't really refute it. But so it doesn't matter. But you don't have that. Nobody on earth has all that, all that knowledge. And so because your perception then is wrong, your perception is an illusion. It's an illusion, and the solution to any illusion is truth, and forgiveness is the pathway there. So forgiveness is also an illusion because we don't need it. What happens, and it's a cry. Any action is either a cry for love or an act of love. And so if that person has done something to you that seemingly needs forgiven, it's really that they were crying for love, right? And that they need healed themselves. And you can only start with yourself. You can only forgive yourself. And healing yourself or forgiving yourself is a gift to the world. It's what salvation is. It's the same thing. And then when you forgive yourself, you have to forgive yourself in order to forgive others, because you can't give something you don't have. Okay? And it's like, so it's a crucial part of loving yourself. And really, they're simultaneously.
Yeah, right.
They're simultaneously occurring. You have to love yourself. Part of loving yourself is forgiving yourself for anything that has ever happened.
It's like forgiveness is some subset of love. That's, yeah.
Yeah, and because no matter what you've done, no matter what you've done to this point, you can move forward, and highly likely, you're going to screw up again.
Well,
and
yeah,
again,
that's
you can go from that point. And of course, now as you can clean up your act, so to speak, more and more and more,
Yeah,
you can do that less and less. Certainly, you can do it less and less in the Miranda Sex and the City way. Like, don't do things that you need to be sorry for, because you can start being cognizant of, like, why do I do that? That
makes
the person right.
Yeah,
so
like
you
last
learn.
time I did this, I upset her. Maybe I shouldn't do this.
Right.
Time.
And so you stop doing that. You start taking the other person's perspective, which is reverse the roles. You have compassion for the other people. You have empathy for the other people. And those two are actually illusions.
Right.
Compassion and empathy, right? Because those are, again, pathways to it. So forgiveness and, I'd argue, compassion, empathy, those are all tools for us to get towards truth. Really, they're illusions, but they are good tools here, right?
Yeah, right.
They are good tools to get, from this physical state where we tend to make mistake after mistake after mistake, and that's why then people say that we're sinners. It's just like, well, it's not as simple as just that because you were born that you were that. Like, that's not what happens. It's these perceptions. Once that illusion starts,
right.
you were born again with original innocence. You come in with original innocence, not necessarily original goodness, because goodness implies badness. Right. And innocence, of course, does imply guilt, right? But it's like that is still, we could almost say original purity, maybe. Right, or perfection.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it doesn't matter, because as soon as any word is just a metaphor, and we've talked about that. But so this is the pathway to it, is to truth. We're always orienting ourselves to the truth. This is the pathway to it. Forgiveness is a good pathway, and it has to start with yourself.
That's pretty good, man.
So,
I mean, I want to keep talking, but I feel like that's like a great place to end.
Yeah, well, so let's end there. We're almost an hour. Let's end there. And then I think episode 14, maybe we'll do a little review of where we've been, kind of talk about where we want to go.
Yeah.
And
14
we're getting
episodes,
closer.
no joke.
Of course, we don't know when you're watching this, but hopefully my book is going to be available on Amazon. I'm shooting for the next month. So we'll see. Today is...
So sometime in August.
Yeah.
Well,
August of 2022.
So yeah, depending on when you see this.
2022. Because it could be 2072 and you're watching these videos... And we're both 100. We both just turned 100. So.
Wow, 2072. That's just silly.
Right on. Who knows? We might be there.
Awesome.